Reddit is one of the most entertaining places on the internet. Honestly, it might also be one of the most fascinating social experiments ever created. Millions of anonymous people all gathered together to answer questions about relationships, life decisions, morality, mental health, family problems, careers, breakups, money, grief, basically every complicated part of being human. And somehow the system works just well enough that people trust it, which is kind of insane when you stop and think about it. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the advice comes from random strangers who know maybe 4 paragraphs about your entire life and somehow still sound incredibly confident about what you should do next. And that's where Reddit becomes really interesting. One thing the internet does really well is making confident people sound extremely convincing. If somebody writes 3 long paragraphs explaining why your relationship is toxic, or why your parents are manipulative, or why your friend is secretly narcissistic, there are parts of your brain that immediately assume they know what they're talking about, especially if the comment has 40,000 upvotes underneath it. But confidence and wisdom are not the same thing. And Reddit has created an environment where people can speak with absolute certainty about situations they barely understand. A 17-year-old can give marriage advice to a 40-year-old. Someone who has never been in a healthy relationship can confidently tell strangers to end theirs. And nobody knows who anybody is. The advice becomes detached from consequence. And the funny part is, once the comment is posted, everyone kind of just moves on. Meanwhile, the person asking the question still has to live their actual life afterwards. That's the part people forget. The people giving the advice usually risk nothing. But what makes Reddit really convincing isn't the advice itself. It's the illusion of consensus. If thousands of people agree with something online, it starts to feel objectively true, even when it's not. And Reddit is especially powerful because of the upvote system. Usually, the most dramatic or emotionally satisfying answer rises to the top first, because that's naturally the kind of response people react to online. Nuanced advice is boring. Calm responses rarely go viral. But dramatic responses thrive online. Sometimes you'll read a story about a fairly normal argument and then scroll into the comments like, interesting, apparently this person is now a narcissist. The reason people keep going to Reddit for advice is because sometimes it genuinely helps. Sometimes strangers can see patterns that people inside a situation can't. Sometimes people need support. Sometimes they just want reassurance that they're not crazy. And honestly, there's something comforting about thousands of people listening to your story when you feel alone. That's what makes the platform so interesting. Reddit can be insightful, hilarious, supportive, intelligent, and deeply human all at the same time. But the problem starts when entertainment becomes guidance, because reading advice is fun. Living with consequences is not. And nowhere is that clearer than in relationship advice threads. The internet tends to speedrun situations emotionally. A misunderstanding becomes a red flag. A flaw becomes toxicity. A disagreement becomes emotional incompatibility. And eventually, every comment section starts sounding like the same person. Leave them. Cut them off. You deserve better. Now, obviously, there are situations where people absolutely should leave unhealthy relationships. Some advice genuinely protects people. But the internet often treats complicated human situations with shocking simplicity. Real life isn't a courtroom. People are flawed. Communication is messy. Long-term relationships are messy. Families are messy. Humans are messy. But online advice often removes all ambiguity because certainty performs better than honesty. And sometimes, after enough upvotes and agreement, online opinions can start feeling way more objective than they probably are. Sometimes it feels like people trust Reddit threads more than actual conversations with people they know in real life. Maybe the healthiest way to use Reddit is the same way you'd use a conversation at a bar. Listen, think about it. Take what's useful, ignore what isn't. But it's probably healthy to remember that Reddit is still Reddit. Because the internet can give perspective, but it cannot fully understand your life. It doesn't know your relationship. It doesn't know your family. It doesn't know your history, your personality, your trauma, your intentions, or the 1,000 invisible details that make human situations complicated. And maybe that's the strange reality of modern life. We've never had more access to opinions, while also having less certainty about who's actually qualified to give them. But despite all of that, Reddit is still weirdly fascinating. It's chaotic, sometimes insightful, sometimes ridiculous, sometimes surprisingly kind. It's basically humanity condensed into comment sections, which is entertaining. Just maybe not something you should build your entire life around. So enjoy the stories, take the advice with a grain of salt, and maybe don't end a 5-year relationship because a guy named Toaster Wizard 92 told you to. I'll see you in the next one.